Hey guys, how's it going? I wanted to come on live. Hello. Welcome. I normally don't come on live at this hour, but I'm testing new things out because people are up at different times. People are up doing different things. They're up at different times. Hello. Hey. How's it going? Hey guys, how's it going? I wanted to come on. Hey, what's up, guys? Y'all know how I feel about real names. Y'all got to come out here with your government names so I can shout you out. I don't know what this is. Dean, Delisa, down 7. I don't know. But comment your name so I can shout you out. Y'all, I wanted to come on because I was just on a live with Isaac Hayes III. He is the founder of Fanbase app, and he said the most hilarious thing ever. I'm literally just popping up minding my own little business, and he makes a comment saying, Liberty Madison, how did you not know that Atlanta was popping like this? How did you not know? He said, you was out in Atlanta acting like you just discovered America. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my God. Hey, what's up, travelers? That's exactly what happened. I felt like Christopher Columbus after he said that. I did not know you guys were out in Atlanta doing what you're doing. Have you guys ever been to Atlanta? I'm telling you, if you call me over the next 6 to 9 months, I'm literally going to be talking about Atlanta because it's so freaking awesome. It's amazing. But I wanted to, hey, what's up, Charles? Hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? I wanted to come on briefly and obviously share that comment that Isaac Hayes III made. Check out Fanbase if you guys are looking for different platforms. Fanbase is a really cool platform. I wanted to come on. I never really come on at this hour, but I wanted to come on and answer any podcast questions. Anybody that has a podcast question, a question about how to start, grow, or monetize your podcast, your business podcast, I want you to chime in. Feel free to come up on live, and I want you to kind of chime in. Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you so much. Charles, shout out to you for getting that badge. Thank you. I wanted to, Charles, do you have a podcast? Are you planning to have a podcast? I wanted to come on and give 3 reasons as to why you should start your own podcast and why you should have 2 podcasts. Everybody should have 2 podcasts, and I wanted to dive into that, but also give you the opportunity to come up and ask some questions. Let's get into it. This is going to be really quick. I want you to just come on for like 10 minutes and say, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful moon. Definitely want to visit there again. Yes. I feel like Atlanta has just changed my life. I mean, hello. You go to Atlanta for 2 minutes and then you come back doing the absolute best. Yeah, it was so funny. But when he said that, I was like, you're right. I do sound like Christopher Columbus. Y'all been down here living. Like, y'all been down here. I just been in Silicon Valley in Texas. I'd never been to Atlanta in my entire life. I'd never been. I only been to Atlanta through music, and they're the best music. I just never seen anything like that. It was mind blowing, and you'll see it in the vlog and everything. Plan on having so it's been someone else's podcast on the regular. Okay, perfect. Let's dive into it. I just want to give you guys a quick 10 minutes. Gets you some tips, help you understand, and feel free. Leave a question, comment a question, and come up on live if you have a question. I really want to give you some podcast game, but from the business side of things, because I know everybody has a podcast. Like, let's talk about high value versus, do they have a name for low value? Because all I hear about is these high value men that are going around. I don't know. What is it called when they're, I don't know. But let's dive into the reasons that you actually need a podcast for business development and to grow your business. And what that looks like is, one, you need a podcast from the standpoint of if you are an individual or if you are a person who is when I say individual, I mean like you're an entrepreneur or a business or something like that. Hey. If you're an entrepreneur, or a lot of people think you have to have a business. You don't have to have a business. So let's make a note of that. You don't have to have a business to start your own podcast. You can also be a corporate contributor. So you could be someone who works in a corporate capacity, who wants to stand out and who wants to climb the ladder and get some corporate recognition. That's what we're talking about, okay? Because when we think about podcasts, we're talking about visibility, not from the standpoint of the relationship podcast, because I don't work with relationship podcasters. I think they're awesome and phenomenal and they're great. I just don't necessarily work with that particular market. I focus on business podcasts because business podcasts you can monetize immediately in specific ways that comes with a framework and helps you really see the ROI almost instantly. And we'll talk about that. So one of the reasons, we're just going over a couple of tips as to why you should think about or consider having your own podcast for your brand, your business, or to elevate yourself. And if you have a question, feel free to drop it. If you want to join in the conversation, feel free to join in. Okay, so here we go. One, realizing that you don't have to have a business. You can be a corporate contributor and work at a corporate company. You can be head of product. You can be chief people officer. You can be UX UI designer. You can be software engineer guy. Doesn't matter. Having a podcast elevates your particular brand and it puts you in position to getting the promotions that you desire at your company. I'm never saying jump out there in the entrepreneurship life. That's great. But although I do think if you are having a full-time job, it is smart to also have your, no, I don't want to, because I want to say it's smart to offer your professional services on the side as well, in addition, like maybe consulting, but that's a whole nother conversation. That's just a smart thing to do because you don't want to just have one source of income. So looking at that, and when you look at a couple of reasons why you should grow, or if you don't have a podcast, you should start your podcast, is it opens up the door and opportunity for business development. Let's talk about that. That's the sweet spot as to which I focus on podcasting. I focus on business podcasts. It's very different and very strategic from the standpoint of creating a targeted list of ideal customers, people that can pay you, people that can really use your services or your products, targeting them and facilitating conversations on meetings that you typically wouldn't get without a podcast. So we look at it from a strategic business development side of things, if that makes sense to you. Strategic business development. And the most important thing that I can say about that is you don't want to invite them to a boring podcast. That's where you have me and my team work with you to create your signature podcast that will allow you to use your voice and your platform for business development, because that's the first thing we're thinking about and the first thing we're talking about. Okay, that's another one. And hey, Coach Coop, here, hello there. Welcome in. We're talking about quick 3 reasons why you need a podcast. And we've talked about so far, 1, identifying that you don't just need a podcast for a business. You can have one as an individual contributor or person who works a 9-to-5 job. 2, you can leverage your podcast for business development purposes. And I want to go over 3 quickly is monetization. Start, grow, make money with your podcast. Monetization. I want to ask you guys a question. If you have a podcast, how do you think you monetize your podcast? If you have a question, how do you think you monetize it? Easy. You monetize it by aligning your business and your brand. That's like the number one way you monetize your podcast. You monetize by aligning your brand with other people who want to tap into your audience and tap into your market. That's going to be the number one way you monetize. A lot of people think you have to grow this huge audience in order to monetize, and that's simply not true. That's not true at all. We just did a huge activation with Comcast, NBC, Comcast Universal, and Revolt TV, and the number one thing that they were looking for was podcasters in a specific niche. It wasn't about, okay, do you have 1 million followers? Do you have 5 million? It wasn't about that. It was podcasters in a specific niche in order to take part of this campaign. One of the things that I noticed in this campaign was so many people, hello there, so many podcasters and people wanted to be a part of this NBC Universal campaign, and they wanted to be a part of what was happening with Revolt TV. The challenge was they did not have a podcast. Hello, that's like obstacle number one. Have a podcast. And hopefully what we talked about thus far lets you know that you don't have to be a business. You can be an employee. You can be an individual contributor and have a podcast. And the other thing we talked about is looking at ways to monetize your podcast. You're aligning yourself with brands. And then the other thing we talked about is why you need to have a business podcast. And it comes from the strategic point of business development. That's why you want to have your podcast. I wanted to come on for a quick 10 minutes and give you just 3 tips to help you understand why you need a podcast, how you leverage your podcast for business purposes. Because again, like I said, I'm out here on Instagram too. I'm on Twitter too. I'm on Facebook too. This doesn't happen much on LinkedIn, but I see those relationship podcasts. I see those high value podcasts. I see all those things. That's not what I do. I don't focus on those relationship guys, the high value this and the women should do this and men need to do that. I don't do that. I focus specifically on business podcasts, and I want to help you understand looking at your podcast from a business perspective really opens doors for you, and it's focused on relationship building, business development, and monetization. That's the sweet spot. And because of that, because we take a different approach, you don't have to have 1 million downloads in order to monetize. You don't have to have that at all. Okay? So definitely click the link in bio, and I would love for you to apply to the Podcast Incubator. Because like I said, one of the things that we noticed, a lot of people wanted to participate in our podcast network activation with NBC Universal, and they didn't have a podcast. I want you to look at it differently. Look at it as though it's not that I need 1 million downloads. I need to have a podcast, have a particular niche, have a particular market, and then what we do in the incubator, we help you monetize it before you start the podcast. That's the part I love about the incubator, y'all. That's the part I love. Because I'm not one of those like, oh yeah, let me help you start a podcast. No. Whether you have a podcast or not, it really doesn't matter. Whether your business succeeds and your business grows and you have an additional outlet for visibility and monetization, that matters to me. That matters. And I think that if you come from the standpoint of people telling you, oh no, you have to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z before you monetize, it's simply not true when you have a business podcast. And we go over that in the incubator. Not only do we go over that, that's the point of the Podcast Incubator, is we work with you in order to secure your first sponsor for your podcast. There you go. There you have it. Yep. There you go. There you have it. I know. That's why I tell folks it's not a regular program. We're going beyond that. We're going beyond that. We're answering those questions. We're getting because I'll tell you this, the number one reason that I've come across since my book of How to Host Podcasts Like a Professional, the number one reason that people don't have a podcast is because they can't think of a name. I know that sounds odd, but it's true. It has a lot of people in a chokehold. They can't think of a name for their podcast. They can't think of a niche. They can't think of a topic. They haven't really packaged their expertise. And another thing is they haven't really nailed down the production aspect of things. And I like to say to all of that, I use this example, and I use this example a lot. And if you've ever come to my talks at South by or anywhere, you've heard me say this. When people are lawyers, you never really walk up to a lawyer and say, I want you to do it like this, and I think you should do this, and do this, and do this. No, you just say, lawyer, Please get me off this murder case. I don't want to go to jail. All right, do your lawyer magic, right? That's it. That's all you say to lawyers. I want you to suspend your need to produce your own podcast because you're not a podcast producer. You're not a content creator. You're not a media professional. The same way you would suspend your belief and let this lawyer get you off this murder trial is the same way I want you to look when it comes to allowing professionals to move you through this journey of launching your podcast. Just remember, let a lawyer. Let a producer produce. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense to some people out there, because I feel like it's one of those things that when you think of visibility, when you think of marketing, when you think of producing, when you think of podcasting, everyone thinks they can do it. But the challenge is that's not their profession. If you're a software engineer, be a software engineer. If you're a designer, be a designer. If you're an architect. Focus on that, and then allow me and my team to say, hey, okay, let's package this. Let's get your signature podcast. Let's name it. Let's brand it. Let's get you out there. And by the way, when you're in our podcast incubator, we're getting you your first sponsor. So yeah, immediately going into monetization. That's the one thing that I really, really love about the podcast incubator is it changes your belief on what a podcast look like. Again, changes your belief to one. You don't have to have a business. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to have a podcast. And you don't have to talk about relationships. You don't have to do that. No. You can be an employee, have a podcast. You can be an entrepreneur, have a podcast. You can do that. Something you can have. And also a different way, number 2, looking at it as business development. This is business development. It's not about downloads. That's cute, but it's really about business development. If you identify your goal, then your KPIs shift. And what we do is work on those specific goals. It's not about I got 15 million views on this high value conversation. That's not what we're doing here. The third is looking at it from the aspect of how do I monetize immediately? So if you have a podcast, if you're thinking about a podcast, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. I can't name it. I don't know the production. I don't know any of this. And I have questions. I need guidance. You can get all of that done at the Podcast Incubator. And the really, really cool thing is in the Podcast Incubator program, we help you get your first sponsor. Oh my God. Oh my God, the hard work is done for you. Oh, that's me. Oh gosh, guys. Do you guys have any questions or anything before I jump off? I just wanted to come on for 10 minutes to talk about the Podcast Incubator and really kind of open your mind to creating content in a way that's most powerful. And if you're looking to connect with anyone 18 to 40, the most powerful way is to create a podcast. And that's going to help you as far as business development and your content creation. That'll help you there. And that's what we do at the Podcast Incubator. If you saw us activate our podcast, our preferred podcast network, I love the preferred podcast network. They was out here doing it. And a lot of podcasters have issues getting celebrity guests. We get you celebrity guests. And brand deals. Yeah, so it was really, really great. But again, this is an opportunity to say, hey, we just noticed that a lot of people wanted to be a part of it. And we thought, well, where's your podcast? And they didn't have one. And I thought, well, if they really want to be a part of it and they don't have a podcast, let's do a podcast incubator. Let's test it out. Let's see what that looks like. And we do our first one next month. If you want to be a part of our first one, hit the link in bio for the Podcast Incubator from the Preferred Podcast Network. And I'm really excited about it. And we have payment plans. We have options for you to be a part of that. And the number one thing that I really like about it is the community and connection. Y'all, we have so much planned. And I can't say that this is going to be something that we do quarterly or something that we do seasonal or something that we do annual, maybe? I don't know. But I know that the first one, we're going all out. I've got some amazing people. I've got some amazing mentors who have literally won some really dope podcast awards and Webby awards and all sorts of stuff. I've got a couple of magazines that have partnered with the Podcast Incubator, and it's going to be dope. That's all I can say. Make sure your podcast, and we only have 8 podcast spots. So if you're a business, entrepreneur, a person who wants to build their personal brand and get that visibility, this is the opportunity for you. I hate to say it like that because, do what you want to do. Because one of the things that I pride myself on is we over-deliver here. We over-deliver. And if you're tired of saying, I want to start a podcast, I don't know. We're getting that out the way. The only thing we need you to do is to commit to doing your podcast. That's it. Did you know most people fail at podcasting after episode 4? That's like the magic episode where people fail and stop. So I say that if you are not committed to a podcast, do not apply, do not click, because we are working way too hard to get partners, to get sponsors, to get people to pay you to podcast for you just to stop at podcast episode 4. If your goal is, I just want to test this out and see, this is not for you. We are not catering to that market. I don't have a solution for you. I wish you well. If your goal is to really build a podcast and a business behind your podcast, or use a podcast to grow your business, this is for you. All right, guys, I'm Liberty Madison, and I'm super, super excited to introduce you to the Podcast Incubator from the Preferred Podcast Network. And you've seen our work from our recent launch of Comcast, NBC Universal, and Revolt TV. And we've got some really, really cool things coming up soon. So reach out, apply. And again, like I said, it starts next month. So you guys have a whole month ahead of time to prepare. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. And again, hit me up. This will be an excellent opportunity, because I'm going to say this before I go. One of the things that I like to focus on is it's all about getting in the room. It is all about getting in the room. This is that room. If you ever said, oh yeah, I really wish I had a podcast. Oh, I really wish, hey doctor, hey there, hey girl. I really wish I could do this. I just don't know. Again, we just recapped the difference of, you don't need to be an entrepreneur. You can be a 9-to-5 person. We don't do the relationship stuff. This is all about business development, how to grow your brand, get those partnerships, get those sponsorships. And then on top of that, teach you how to monetize immediately before you even start. And in the Podcast Incubator, we help you monetize with your first partner, with your first sponsor. Can you believe that? Feel free to hit me up in the DMs, and I will see you guys on the other side. All right, guys, have a good night. Oh, Raw Vegan, thank you so much, Femi. I wanted to say that because, Femi, you've been super active in the chat. So, Femi, thank you so much for coming on. I want to say that before I jump off. And before I jump off, I want to see if we have any questions. Okay, great. Awesome, guys. Hit me up in the DMs, and we'll see you next time.